Hey there. Welcome to the Pine Island Experience podcast. I'm Joanna Anderson with my husband, Trygve. Each of our episodes will be conversations with fellow Pine Islanders.
The goal of our podcast is to share with you our experiences, what we have found to be fun, and what makes the Pine Island experience so unique.
We do. So it's GPI Alliance, so GPIalliance.org. And on that website, right up top, you have Get Help. So if you need help or your neighbor needs help, and don't forget your neighbor, because on Pine Island, one of our greatest strengths is I don't need help, but I know somebody who does. Well, when I walk into your house, yes, we all still need a little bit of help. So there's Get Help. So if you or your neighbor need help, just get on there and help them fill that out. Right next to that is Get Involved. And so from there, you can sign up to be a volunteer. And sometimes it can be skilled labor. It could be a simple project. People need help moving things back into a home or still clearing out a shed or a garage. There's a lot of smaller projects, or some people, it might even still be debris in the backyard, trees and limbs that they just have not been able to or not capable of taking care of. And so there's a lot of different projects that people can get involved with still, just helping your neighbor day to day. But that's also what I say. It's also just, be a volunteer in your own neighborhood. Look at your neighbors and, we'd love to have you and we can point you in directions where people still have needs. But oftentimes it's that neighbor who doesn't ask for help that we find needs help because somebody else needs it more than I do. And we still see that a lot.
You were listening to Aaron Barreda, commander of American Legion Post 136 and co-founder, co-chair of Greater Pine Island Alliance. Commander Aaron was describing the mission of GPIA, which is dedicated to the long-term recovery of Pine Island. After leading recovery relief at the Legion post-Hurricane Ian, Aaron focused on creating a long-term recovery group with co-founder Jay Sanderson. The goal is to return every survivor home. Aaron requests you help your neighbors and go to the website gpialliance.org. Click on Get Help, get involved, view the live stream meetings, or attend the meetings in person every third Tuesday of the month. And now, here's Aaron. Well, we have with us today Commander Aaron Barreda. Thank you for joining us. American Legion, wonderful place. We've spent a lot of time there. Thank you for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here and honored to be asked to come on your podcast.
Well, welcome. So we're going to start like we always do with the podcast. We want to know about you from where you grew up, where you went to school, about your military service. Go ahead and fill us in.
No, thank you. So I grew up in Los Angeles, California. I entered the academy at West Point at the age of 17. So
wow.
1 through 17, I did Los Angeles, and I'll never move back. Crazy, too much traffic out there. So definitely never move. My mom still lives there. I'll go visit, but too much traffic out there. But joining the military at such a young age, being commissioned in 1995, I was able to travel the United States, throughout my career, whether it's Oklahoma, Georgia, Washington, D.C., Fort Carson in Colorado, just, great trips all over the United States. And that's one reason I like Florida and this end and the East Coast is having been able to travel. So I graduated in 1995. I ended up doing a little over 20 years in the military. Just amazing experience. Obviously, it was a time of conflict. So I did end up doing 3 tours in Iraq. I did 1 tour in Afghanistan. Operationally, I did tours Egypt, Honduras, training out in Jordan. So been around the Middle East, a little bit of Central South America. Had a great experience in traveling the globe, and it really broadens your horizons and gives you a completely different perspective. What I would say, one of the takeaways from those travels is poverty across the globe is immense, and we are just so blessed. And I think that has always impacted me coming back from overseas is how blessed we are, even on bad days. Mm-hmm. We're blessed. I like to call some things first world problems.
Yes.
We'll complain about something, and it's like, hey, there's no Busch Light left in the Circle K.
I'm having trouble charging my phone.
Right. So, we are just extremely blessed to be in the United States. But throughout my career, I was a field artillery officer. I advanced through the ranks from second lieutenant, finally retiring as a light colonel. Some of the highlights, looking back, commanded a couple batteries. But then I was also able to be the interagency fellow for the United States Marshal Service. So I was assigned from the Department of Army to the United States Marshals and was able to work with them. And that was an exciting adventure in Washington, D.C., and just working interagency was exciting. Additionally, I had the privilege of being Chief of Military Training for the United States Military Academy, West Point. So I did that for about 4 years of my career, and just working with those young, brilliant individuals, some of our nation's finest, and watching them come in their plebe year or freshman year and graduate, their first year, senior year, 4 years later, and go on to a lifetime of service. It's really just awesome to be able to have had that opportunity. And I finally retired. I was assigned to Tampa to United States Central Command, where it was supposed to be my nice year retirement job, but the person in front of me retired sooner. So I ended up as acting chief of joint fires for United States Central Command while we're in the middle with our Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan. So instead of easing into retirement, the days were long and the nights were short. But it was, once again, just a rewarding job. Anytime you're in the military, being able to lead individuals, it's extremely rewarding. And that's kind of where Florida and how I ended up down here on Pine Island. I had actually, when I was in D.C., had a home on the East Coast over by Fort Pierce, had fallen in love with Florida. My kids' grandparents had lived in Fort Lauderdale, so a lot of experience with it. I had asked to retire out of Tampa because that could get me at least to Florida. And I started driving north, south, east, and west. And one day I stumbled upon this place called Pine Island. And I stumbled upon the American Legion. Actually, that was one of them, because anytime I traveled, having been an Army vet, I looked for the local Legion post. Mm-hmm. And I kept coming back down. I stayed Bridgewater Inn a few times. I stayed down, it's right across from Two Fish, right down in St. James a few times. But I just kept coming back because living in Tampa, it's a 2-hour drive. It wasn't far. So I found myself coming down more and more weekends, which then led to, okay, it's time to get that retirement house and move down here. And I'm very blessed, found a home in Ballachet Isles.
Oh, wow.
And so that's, where I reside. But the gift of the military to come down here is I did retire after, the 20 plus years. And so that enabled me after the storm to take command of the American Legion and to help lead those recovery efforts that the American Legion did. Those multiple months working with all the volunteers, all the donations being given away, opening the doors, feeding everybody, anywhere from 600 to 1,000 people a day. Lunch and dinner were coming through for the 2.5 months that we did it. And so that was just, my mom says that I did the military to be down here for a certain time. She believes it that way, that it set me up in a way to be able to do, because a lot of it was logistics and it's things, I understood from the military in terms of that background. But in terms of Pine Island and the storm and, like everybody, it affected me, immensely. I was fortunate to be on the other side of the break in Matlacha. So I was able to get the boat into the water. And that's where I met one of my good buddies, Jay Sanderson, who we eventually founded Greater Pine Island Alliance together, is doing boat runs. Mm-hmm. So I was helping Island Tactical for a few days, just picking them up in the morning, and they were bringing food out to the island. So it's just such a small community, and it was, I think, one of the benefits, if there is a benefit, I know it's hard to say with the disaster, any benefits, but how the community came together, helped each other, and I think a lot of new friendships bloomed and blossomed over it. And so that's what I saw. But that, in short, that's, kind of what brings me here and where I ended up taking command of the American Legion. It was, the storm, and it was a lifetime of opportunities leading up to that to be able to help.
And you're not retired. You can say you're retired from the military, but what you're doing today, you're not retired.
No, I'm not retired. I retired from the military. So it was short-lived. It was fun, though. I ran out of Madeira Beach. I ran a fish house, and, we offloaded 75% of all red grouper through Madeira Pass there. So I've done that. I took time to manage a restaurant after retired. I bar backed. That was my favorite job.
Oh, that was tough.
It was good. That was good. But I did retire from the military, and that is really the key to why I'm able to do what I do today and have free time. Every blessing has a curse. My executive director always likes to say, in my nonprofit, every blessing has a curse. And I think, sometimes bad things happen, but then good things arise.
Well, thank goodness you were down there. We needed tarp and ice, and I mean, you were just a mile down the road, and wow, that was heaven sent, and it was enormous effort. So, thank you for that.
No, I appreciate that, and the American Legion is it's such a great organization. Veterans, Sons of the Legion, the auxiliary, daughters, daughters whose parents served or grandparents served, sons whose parents, grandparents served. And the community as a whole, the American Legion represents, I think, also pride in our country, pride in our community. And the focus of the Legion is to give back to the veteran community to help local veterans, but to give back to the community at large. And I think American Legion Post 136 can't be more proud. Due to that giving back, they were awarded for 2023 the best post in Florida for any American Legion.
Congratulations.
So can't be more proud of the men and women who serve there day in and day out. And the attitude of service is immense. And it's really something to admire. And even the great stuff the Legion does every year with the kids, they do back to school program, handing out backpacks and ready to go. It's fun to see that. Community events like One Hole Over the Pond, a few weeks ago, you always get a big turnout. And then obviously we can't forget July 4th, the best fireworks show, I think, in the whole county.
Yes.
Right there at the American Legion. So it's a great honor to lead that organization and to have been leading it for the last year and a half or so as it is now.
So a lot of places we're talking about, having supplies and being right around the corner from the Legion. That was, our place of, and we just happened to walk in there. I don't know, it was a tarp, like she said, or something like that. The amount of stuff. So how did that all happen? Because a lot of places had stuff you could pick up, but at least the ones we visit, that had to be maybe the largest volume and certainly the most well laid out, because we went in there and I don't remember now, but it was something like, I'm like, gosh, there's even like Kraft macaroni and cheese that, like, if you have some way to heat the water, you could still make, comfort food when we were all kind of getting by on whatever you could find. And, cooking wasn't the easiest thing to do, but it was and I think there was like laundry soap and dish soap. It was just an amazing array of products that, and to your point, kind of first world problems, we are used to being, hey, you're out of it, you just run to the store. And that was a time we couldn't do that. And you could run to the Legion and it was really well stocked.
So we're very fortunate. So the American Legion, the first tractor trailer we received came from the Midwest, from another American Legion. So the state and nationally, the American Legion immediately jumped into action to start pushing supplies down. So literally, the day the bridge opened, we had regional American Legion coming down with a convoy of trucks and trailers to drop supplies. And then just a couple days after that is when the first tractor trailer came in. Then success sometimes begot success. So once it became known, we had linked in with the American Red Cross and FEMA. Then the word got out that there was a site that was capable of supporting this operation. And so a lot of other nonprofits then got involved in bringing supplies. So it was Legions, it was VFWs, it was churches, it was local, just community organizations or businesses. But it had the snowball effect of, once it got going, rolling down the hill, it got bigger because it was realized that this was a site. And then during that time as well, the American Red Cross came down several times and staged out of there. FEMA came down and staged it out of there. So I think the word got out, and what started with a American Legion family and the Greater National American Legion helping out really ballooned. And I mean, the amazing thing, the food we were serving, 900 people, obviously the post ran out of whatever we had very quickly. That was all donated. Wow. Every single week, it was donated food. It started with Publix and Winn-Dixie here on the island helping out. And then once again, other nonprofits found out, and they started to bring in food to the island. And I'll never forget the first day we got fresh produce. That was probably the biggest happiest day. We could make a salad.
Yeah.
No more pulled pork, a salad, please. But so it was really great just to see, there was actually a doctors group out of Tampa that was sponsoring a lot of the food coming down to this island.
It's amazing.
So it's really just interesting seeing all the national and the local volunteer organizations that are active in disaster come to the aid of the Legion, of the island, of this community, and helping everybody out.
You talked about always looking for a Legion location when you're out doing your travels. How did you first get involved with, or become aware of the Legion that has led you kind of down the path of seeking them out and then seeking office to support here?
I was active duty when I first heard about the American Legion. I think they'd probably come to, I don't want to call it a career day, just one of the events where multiple agencies come and talk to the soldiers. And I was like, all right, let me check it out. And the first one I went to was in Junction City, Kansas, quite small post. But what I found is camaraderie. And at that time, being active duty, the retired veterans enjoyed seeing an active duty person or two come in, and the fellowship that interchanged. Since that point, I always had, any post I went to, I found a Legion. I wasn't always active in it, but I found one and I joined. Even in Washington, D.C., I found a Legion and joined there as well, even though it's concrete jungle. But it was a fun place, a good place to go hang out with fellow vets. And then really where my heart was when I moved to Treasure Island. So I was single. I was still active duty. I found my local American Legion. Gosh, I probably ate dinner there almost 4 nights a week at least. Get off work and, even if I was late, there'd be a plate. Mm. Even if they, kind of closed the kitchen, they knew I'd be coming in. And they really embraced me. And then when I retired, it's hard to say, but when you retire from the military, you go from everything to nothing overnight. Multiple phones to no phone calls. Nobody's calling you at 2 a.m, 3 a.m. anymore. It just goes to zero. And it's a harder place to transition than one might think, because you very much in need, very much connected, and all of a sudden you're just out there. And so from that, I had a lot of, support from the American Legion. There was a time in my life where I'd go in there and I'd, be sitting on that bar stool way too much. And it was Legion friends who, come on, Aaron, what are you going to do? I got through Vietnam. Figure it out. You just going to sit here? And it was Legion folks that I found that camaraderie with, that, they would open up. They'd talk about Vietnam. I'm like, I understand, but what are you going to do? This can't be your retirement. And so that's really where my heart grew. So the Legion has grown on me for a number of years, but it was when I retired, when I was out, when everything quieted down and you're just lost in thought. That's when those folks came and supported me in my journey post the military.
I think it's an interesting point to bring up, because whether it's high school, college, or even employment in a company or military, whatever the case might be, is I don't think you realize or appreciate you have built-in friends. You work with the same people, you're going through the same classes, and when you leave those environments, to your point, just like retiring from a job, now all of a sudden, like you're sitting at your house. You don't have to get up at a certain time. You don't have to be anywhere at a certain time per se. And then all of a sudden, I do think a lot of people potentially go through loneliness or other emotions and stuff like that, because almost in a way you didn't have to work. I mean, I assume you always had other colleagues in the Army, or you had the veterans. You had all these things that were it was like almost built in and provided, for lack of a better word. You move away from that, and now you don't have it, and there are challenges with that.
I think you express it very well, and I talk it from my military perspective, but I think you bring up valid points. It's any job or any time you just stop, because it's even the banter around grabbing that cup of coffee first thing in the morning, the hellos to people in your office space, even though it's going to be a busy day running 100 miles an hour, that interaction, that social interaction on just that nice level, and how was your weekend and what'd you do? And it was built in. So very valid point, I think. And it's interesting to think of it in that perspective.
So you've talked about the Legion community. Let's talk a little bit more about things that 136 or Post 136 does on an ongoing basis. I know there's is it like a taco day and a burger day? There's kind of other standing programs people can enjoy.
There absolutely is. So we have Taco Monday, which is great, and everybody loves to attend that. And very much thank you to the ladies who helped run that. Friday burgers, off the charts, flame grilled right there to order. I mean, I think the last couple of weeks we've been hitting 188 in 2 hours out of there. So it's getting pretty big. Jesse's doing a great job with the burgers out there and really helping that. So throughout the week, though, obviously we have great things like Show Me the Money, going on tonight for once. We have Bobby Mann's karaoke. He's there.
He's a big hit.
He is, and he's there twice a week at the American Legion. And then during season, every other week, we do the brunch. The other weekends, we have breakfast sandwiches, burritos. One of the main things we've been doing lately is Jesse has worked to expand the menu in the kitchen for us. Jesse Romero doing a great job with that. So providing some, instead of just fried food, some fresh sandwiches that you can order, during lunch, expanding the times so that there's more opportunity to have food at the Legion. As a whole, the Legion has been undergoing some renovations post-storm. So we've got some luxury vinyl flooring put down in the back, and we're working from the back to the front. We had to replace all the offices. They had to be gutted and rebuilt. So we've done that. We're slowly moving through just general remodeling and bringing it up a little bit. Always a great post, but always in need of a little bit of care and love. So we're doing that right now. The main thing, though, I'd say one of the focuses of the American Legion is the youth and Americanism. And to that, we're very proud to announce, just talked to Dr. G the other day, we had volunteered, and the American Legion is going to be supporting Pine Island Elementary by purchasing all the red shirts for the elementary kids.
Oh, wow.
So on every Friday, all American Legions, it's called Red Shirt Friday. Remember everyone deployed. Yeah. And so when we go eat those burgers, we wear our red shirts. So we thought it was very fitting with Pine Island Elementary. Their spirit color is red. They wear red shirts every Friday. So it just made a natural fit to request to sponsor their shirts, put a little American Legion logo on there so they know where it's coming from, an American flag. But just proud to sponsor that and further our connection with Pine Island Elementary. Like I said, we do multiple programs throughout the year. Even Trunk or Treat's another great one that the American Legion is involved in to help the youth and, just promote Americanism and promote the values that we believe in.
Talked a little bit about the remodeling. Other plans for the Legion that can be discussed? I'm sure there's ongoing discussions and things aren't finalized, but things that are going to be happening in the coming months that you can talk about?
So right now, the remodeling, some of things towards the future. The debate right now is always timeline when we're in season, how to continue to proceed. So some may wait till after season. But so the whole back room has already been repainted. Luxury vinyl's coming through. The kitchen and buffet area inside the Legion just getting updated, and some of those cabinets, updated, redone. And then pushing in towards the bathroom, one of the biggest things that I'd asked, and we're waiting on the final from county permits coming back, is putting in handicap accessible restroom stalls. Okay. So kind of using some of the extra area in the hallway that we found as wasted space to expand our access for those in need. So I think that's one of the exciting things we're going to be able to do. I know a new bar top is also on the table. So we're really just working from one side to the other. Slowly, it's going to take time. Made some improvements in the kitchen already. The kitchen will also get some new flooring put down, doing some updating in there of the cabinets in the workspace. So it's just an exciting time to watch it progress. Who knows? Maybe we'll screen in the deck one day. A lot of people talk about that.
Or there are no-seums out there.
Absolutely.
Yes,
so who knows? That might come down the road.
Here.
But we'll see where it goes. But I think the exciting part is it's just a general rejuvenation of cleaning.
Yeah.
And it did take a hit by the storm. That whole roof had to replace, the offices. So it was.
Well, it'll probably all be done by next season, right?
That would be the goal.
Is that the goal?
So if everything keeps going, and then, like I said, some of it slowed down, did on season and off season, probably pick some of it back up.
Now, you alluded to this earlier that good can come out of bad. So post-Ian, talk about some of your involvement and the things that have happened that have trying to get the island, and as I understand it, in better shape should the worst happen again.
That's right. So this also came from me working at the American Legion doing relief. What I realized is it was through direct coordination, but being an unincorporated Lee, at the time, we did not have full access to the county, state, and federal government and those resources. Very fortunate, the state CERT team, which provided mental wellness, came down, and the director of that was a gal by the name of Ami. And she saw what we were doing, and then she had been over to a meeting that we had over at the Beacon with multiple of the volunteer organizations on the island. And she said, Aaron, what you're doing is called a long-term recovery group, or it's a coalition of organizations. They're called Volunteer Organizations Active in Disaster, or Community Organizations Active in Disaster. And she said, what you need to do is formalize this. And there's actually a structure to formalize what you're doing to represent the island in recovery. Michelle Luckett, who ran an organization, Brace, which supports long-term recovery groups, drove across the state the next day and talked to me. And then I got with Jay, and we all met and we discussed, and we realized the path forward. So from that, it was in December, I want to say December 9th, is when we received our state number to be recognized as a nonprofit long-term recovery group. And then through some great help and friends of the island, we were able to achieve our nonprofit status on January 16th. So just over a month.
That's amazing speed.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
But that then allowed us to start tapping into county, state, and federal resources.
Interesting.
And one of the first people who really committed to this island from the county was Commissioner Ruane. So we started meeting weekly after the disaster, formed this long-term recovery group. And he would come to every meeting every week. He made it a priority to come out here. So that really helped us name recognition and understanding that the county is going to work with this organization, and it will be the long-term recovery organization. So from that, very fortunate, we were recognized by Volunteer Florida. Volunteer Florida manages the Florida Disaster Relief Fund, and that's where our first significant grant came in, and that came in February. That was a capacity building grant to officially establish and charge the organization. So that was courtesy of the First Lady's funds from Florida. And from there, it has taken off. But let me back up real quick, though, sure. In terms of, because I've already just realized I threw around like 10 acronyms, just like I was in the Army. You get so used to it being in the military, you don't even think about it when you use it. But a long-term recovery group, it's a cooperative body that is made up of representatives from faith-based, nonprofit, government, businesses, and other organizations working within a community to assist individuals and families as they recover from disaster. So that's what a long-term recovery group is. That's the intent of it. It's to help families and organizations, but it's a coalition of partners and friends and people working in tandem, because not one organization has all the answers. We've had so many great organizations post-storm. Mount Lachey Hookers, handing out drywall, helping with supplies. We got involved with that and helped them with that. Beacon of Hope, helping people get supplies. Pine Island Community Church, after they really exploded in their giving and helping there. The Baptist Church at Center, Catholic Church, they all had impacts, but everybody has a slightly different mission, a slightly different goal. And so one of the reasons you stand up in LTRG is to try to reduce the duplication of efforts and maximize efficiencies. So if we're all doing the same thing, are we meeting the needs of our community? And so what we discovered is it's best to collaborate and talk amongst the group. All right, so what are you best at doing? Here's what we can do. Well, here's what Organization B can do. The Methodist Church's Center has been phenomenal in allowing use of their space. And, UMCOR, they've brought in disaster case managers that are still working on the island. So each organization has gifts and talents. And so that's the long-term recovery group. That's what we do. We try and coalesce those to maximize the efficiencies for the island. So with that, the mission of the Greater Pine Island Alliance, or GPIA, is to provide leadership and coordinated management of the long-term recovery efforts for Greater Pine Island and provide additional long-term assistance to individuals and businesses affected by the disaster who do not have adequate resources to meet their needs. And so that's really where we started to focus our mission, but it's coalescing all these great groups out there, because we can't do it alone. Nobody can. So our goal is to return every survivor home. It's a lofty goal, but that's what we're focused on.
That's huge, but it's a wonderful goal.
So that is, in essence, what we work towards day in and day out. So whether it's coordinated with the county, state, and federal government, working with major organizations like the United Way, the American Red Cross, Habitat for Humanity. That's been another big supporter of this island. Many people don't know. But these national organizations, because we have the structure in place, are then able to help the island through that. Rebuild Together Tampa Bay. That's another nonprofit. I think they're in 13 or 14 counties now. We've been working with them, and gosh, I think between us and them, probably close to 20 roofs funded for individuals in need. But
the focus has been on recovery, though, right? Because we're still recovering. A lot of people still aren't in their homes.
Absolutely.
What about did I hear too, it's also the disaster planning for next time?
There is. So
Okay.
if we go through our objectives, we have 4 that we structured the organization around. One is to be the structured organization to lead the community in long-term recovery. The second is that liaison, like I mentioned, with the county, state, and federal government and other non-governmental agencies. And then work closely with local and visiting nonprofit organizations doing volunteer coordination, collaborative effort. Our 4th objective, though, is that the community will develop resiliency to be better equipped to deal with future disasters. And so we've talked with the fire department, we've talked with the water board, and we all know that we could have done things better. And so it's looking forward along that path. One of the first things we work towards is getting multiple Starlinks funded. So we had a plan for 5. So between Matlacha and up and down the island, afterwards at set locations, they can be stationed so that people know where they can immediately go to receive communication on the island, because we know that was a big factor. Along that, we've drawn up and talked to different groups and agencies, working water pre-positioned. So actually with Idalia coming in, due to connections, some water was able to be put center, north, and down south by the American Legion. And that was can't remember if that was United Way or Red Cross, but one of them. So, but it's also coordinating with the organizations that would come in right afterwards, that if you have a plan in place, it's predetermined where that goes. Other grant funding, and in talking with the county, met with them just the other week, we're also looking at everything from a better barge plan, hardening of marinas. The ultimate goal would be to get a hardened structure on this island. None of our fire department houses right now are hardened. So when winds reach a sustained of 40 miles per hour, the first responders have to leave this island.
Okay.
So we know that's not even a tropical storm yet.
Right.
So if we have sustained winds at 40, they have to leave the island.
Okay.
So one of the big goals that we would like the county to do is hopefully establish a resiliency center or a hardened structure where either first responders could reside, or we know we could have some generators and key things stored that aren't going to get destroyed because the structure is hardened. So we saw that as another major problem after a storm. So we are looking at we have working group formed, and if people want to get involved in working group, feel free to reach out, because more minds are always better. None of us have the answer. We're just looking at what occurred and what can we as a local community in unincorporated Lee County just do as neighbors. Because that's really what this is about. Anything we're talking about, I can talk to the county. But we're unincorporated Lee. This is just neighbors helping neighbors, trying to see if we can, get the county to help the island.
Sure.
Is it a fair assumption that maybe as a byproduct of this, I think there was some expression that I heard, or a frustration, that there were services available, but one, people didn't know about them. 2, many of them were, you had to drive some other place. And maybe we were not being smart about it, but like, we didn't want to go up and down Stringfellow bothering the electric workers who were trying to restore, power back to the homes and so forth. So will that assist with, not only, you were talking about placement, but it sounds like getting more services to be available local within a short walk or drive or bike ride versus driving an hour plus into, I think one of the, and I won't say their name because I'm sure they were doing their best, but you had to drive over an hour to get an appointment, or to get to your appointment, versus like once they got set up at your place and others, then you could do a very short commute and be able to talk to them and get involved and get the help.
No, absolutely. And that's part of the reason we're trying to look at this. We did publish, I think it was in the last real estate guide last year, the tentative plan, how it would map out across the island. But that's the exact idea, is that we can't have everything on every block, but we do know something down near St. James City. We need something near the center, something halfway up in Bokeelia, something to the top. We need another site out in Matlacha. And that's kind of how the 5 sites came around. It was just working group on folks, fire department, water department, just looking at it. And it wasn't any like, oh my gosh, this is what it has to be. But the idea is exactly what you're saying, is that you have someplace local in your neighborhood, because the amount of cars that were lost, people could not get anywhere.
Yeah,
then you had no gas, so you also didn't want to have to drive very far. And if you did, you carpooled. And hey, we're making a trip down, who all needs to go somewhere? So all those factors play into it, but it's absolutely to have somewhere in your neighborhood, that being relative, that I can walk to or I can get to, where I can find relief, get communication, hear what's the real communication is going on. Because with lack of access, coconut telephone always takes over.
Right.
So that is absolutely why we see it's key to have sites up and down. But then that's where working with the county and liaisoning is they will understand that. The Red Cross ahead of time will understand that these are locations you can go to, drop them, and not just, some of those relief organizations, and I really appreciate everything you did, where they're driving up and down the island and didn't know where to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so trying to help with that planning and simply just work with the county on it. Because they are rewriting their emergency plans right now. As of last talking to them, they have several plans that they're just working through based on experience.
And people were driving around. The fire department, the ones that were filling in so the other guys could get some rest, and they came from Miami or wherever. They came to each other, are you okay? Do you need anything? People were bringing food around. That was fabulous because everybody was working on their homes, and people would just pull up. Can I help you move something? It was such a great sight to see.
No, there's a lot of great community involvement after the storm. Really was amazing.
Have they defined for you what hardened means? Because I know we're not technically a barrier island, but because I guess Sanibel Captiva would hold that role. But considering we are an island with very low level sea level, I don't want anybody's life to get damaged. I'm a little surprised that it's at 40 where they're asked to relieve. And what would it take to get, like you said, facility storage and first responders to be able to remain?
So that then gets into county codes, so I'll let those guys talk what hardened is. But it's Cat 5 rated structure, and that is capable. So it would need to be an elevated structure.
Okay. It
would need to be rated, and that's where, like I said, our fire departments, they're great buildings, but they're not rated for Cat 5 hurricane. And so it requires, for example, your emergency operations centers in Fort Myers, Cape, those are hardened, Cat 5 hardened structures. Okay. They might not be raised based on their location, but thickness of the walls and windows, et cetera, can withstand the hurricane.
Gotcha.
We've also looked at everything as well as talked to the county about, just having a better AM connection out here. Because we all get those little handheld radios that are supposed to be emergency radio.
Yeah, we have them.
And then you're not getting great signal out here.
Yeah.
It's like, what about just establishing an AM broadcast so that we know the island can hear? It's a myriad of ideas. And that's where I think collectively, the more people that would enjoy, working on projects like this, there's not a right answer. It's like, what are some of these ideas that we can come up with as a community?
But even simple stuff, and I think this is a lot of what you're talking about, is the coordination of that Starlink, because just personally, one of our frustrations is when we were able to make a phone call, and you knew cell towers were going to be iffy, and that's understandable post a natural disaster. The number of places it told me, you can do that on our website. And you don't want to be rude, but it's like, we can't get to the internet.
Thank you.
And so, yes, it's great that you have an online form and I don't have to drive somewhere. On the other hand, you are providing a tool, for lack of a better word, that I have, or the islanders as a whole don't have access to.
No, absolutely. You're right. And I think I learned that from the American Legion. Fortunately, we did have some folks come in and establish a link there. But that's why then FEMA and the Red Cross came down, because they realized they could actually fill out forms there. Because without everything is designed now, even FEMA and Red Cross, they're designed to, you have to have connectivity. And so I think that's why Starlink was one of the first things we looked at.
So interesting waterfall effect. You did it probably for some other reasons, but then it allowed other agencies, it drove their interest in particular, because they themselves need access to the internet or their own tools.
It's a world of connectivity now.
I was just going to ask, you must need volunteers. How do people find out how to be a volunteer? I think you have a website where you can.
So it's GPI Alliance, so GPIalliance.org. And on that website, right up top, you have Get Help. So if you need help or your neighbor needs help.
Okay.
And don't forget your neighbor, because on Pine, one of our greatest strengths is I don't need help, but I know somebody who does. Well, when I walk into your house, yes, we all still need a little bit of help. So there's Get Help. So if you or your neighbor need help, just get on there and help them fill that out. Right next to that is Get Involved. And so from there, you can sign up to be a volunteer. And sometimes it can be skilled labor. It could be a simple project. People need help moving things back into a home, or still clearing out a shed or a garage. there's a lot of smaller projects, or some people, it might even still be debris in the backyard, trees and limbs that they just have not been able to or not capable of taking care of. And so there's a lot of different projects that people can get involved with still, just helping your neighbor day to day. But that's also what I say. It's also just, be a volunteer in your own neighborhood. Look at your neighbors, and, we'd love to have you, and we can point you in directions where people still have needs. But oftentimes it's that neighbor who doesn't ask for help that we find needs help, because they somebody else needs it more than I do. And we still see that a lot. But absolutely, if you get on the website, we post our monthly minutes, we post our meetings. The other place, if you want to find out more about us, is through our Facebook, the GPIA Alliance Facebook page. And we do Facebook live stream all of our meetings. Okay. So you can see them. If you can't make it down, we do them at Pine Island Community Church, the third Tuesday of every month at 5:30. But if you can't make it, we live stream them. So even if 5:30 doesn't work, you can click on it later and watch it and see what was discussed. And we've had some great speakers there, everything from Red Cross, Habitat for Manatee, someone out of the Collaboratory in Fort Myers came and spoke. Commissioners spoken on multiple ones. So there's always some good insight being put out. We try and leverage our ability to bring in outside agencies that normally don't come down to the island to be able to talk so people know. So, Habitat, for example, they're one of our partners and help donate to the island, but they have programs that people can apply for directly as well in aid still. And so that's why we try and get it in Facebook Live so people can go back and watch afterwards.
Does that also imply that it's open to literally everybody that wants to learn and or get involved, right? I assume, because you're not going to restrict Facebook Live.
No, we have open meetings.
Open meetings.
Our meetings are completely open, and we do them, like I said, every third Tuesday at 5:30 at Pine Island Community Church or on Facebook Live.
Do you have a good turnout for those?
We do. Interestingly enough, the turnout since we've gone to Facebook Live has gone down. However, generally within about 48 hours, we have over 1,000 views on that meeting.
Wow.
Unique views.
Yep.
So the turnout has continued to go up.
Excellent.
We've just noticed people are enjoying, and we do get interaction during the meetings from Facebook Live, because you can shoot questions and ask as well. So we do get interaction off the web. And so just like everything else, trying to find what's easier for people. But sometimes it's easier when you're at home and it's an evening hour and you're still getting dinner ready, or maybe the kids just came home or something if you want to watch it, just watch it.
Sure. Good way to find out what's going on. Yep. And I think there's a newsletter you said too.
There is. You can sign up for the newsletter on the website as well. So
that might have announcements about what's going to happen at the next meeting, right?
It does. It will put the newsletter. If you're on the newsletter, you'll also get on the email distro, which will always remind people of the meeting. And we try and put out who's upcoming or what event or who will be speaking at the meeting. But yeah, if you haven't checked out the webpage, that's just a great place to start. It talks about the organization. In 2023, right off the top, approximately 1,308 people assisted. We had over 322 volunteers come down and help, and over 8,811 volunteer man hours were donated to this island. So it just talks to people still love this island. It feels some days like we're a year and a half away and they've forgotten. Had a great church out of Indiana come down a few weeks ago. They helped 4 different families. They were so blessed that they're coming back in a couple of months, and they're skilled laborers out of Indiana. Wow. And so there's still a lot of groups out there that are willing to come and help. So I think the message is you're not alone. Reach out to your neighbors, reach out to your friends. Plenty of us are here to help you still and help navigate, because it's hard.
I believe I saw a lot of sponsors on the website too. There's a ton of sponsors.
There are. We have a lot of partnered organizations friends, partners. I mentioned some of them, like I said, American Red Cross, Collaboratory, Lee County, Volunteer Florida. Catholic Charities has donated to the SON, Greater Pine Island Alliance, and helping rebuild homes directly. They're doing that out here. Mount Hookers is a great group. The Beacon of Hope we work with. We do work with United Way quite a bit, and the United Way warehouse. We're able to work with them. Salvation Army is another great one that a lot of people don't know has started donating to this island. A lot of the common names you would think about, and that's why it was important to establish the actual entity that's recognized in such a way, is that's how you get involved with these national organizations. And we're just excited to see where it goes and what great things can, come of it.
Well, it's just exciting to hear because I think not for those people living locally, but you mentioned a group out of Indiana, et cetera, or even a national organization. I think there's a feeling that once the media starts covering it, or stops covering it, it's over. And I know back when we were both working, there was another storm in another part of Florida, and luckily we only had some branches down and got it cleaned up within a few hours. But I was on a conference call a day or two later, and they said, well, it's all over, right? And I said, no, we can't drive west out of our house. There's still massive trees down over the street. Not everybody that she worked didn't have power yet with. So, we had to drive. Luckily, we could go east or west, but I think there's this perception that the winds have died down, the rain has stopped, and the sun is out. And this focus on getting people back into homes. And that I think Andrew was a 10-year rebuilding process. But to your point, we have short memories. And I think people say, oh, well, I'm sure Florida's fine now. It's been a while. And they may be focused on Idalia or whatever. But there's still a lot of work to be done in and around what happened in Southwest Florida.
There absolutely is. And so Greater Pine Island Alliance is a voting board member of Florida VOED. Florida VOED is Volunteer Organizations Active in Disaster. There's also National VOED. And that's part of the reason we're able to stay connected with this and with all these communities. So the American Red Cross, for example, one of our big sponsors and partners, they had an event over in Fort Myers we went to a few weeks back. And it was strictly a networking event for volunteer organizations and disaster recovery organizations. Out of that event, that's where next week, Greater Pine Island Alliance, in conjunction with Camp NOAA, introduced through American Red Cross, we're going to be able to host the Kids Resiliency Camp at the St. James City Civic Center. Mm-hmm. And so I think we had 35 kids sign up to that. And it's a week focused on the mental health of the children. Camp NOAA is a disaster relief organization. So they use the story of Noah, not so much in a biblical, but as in the story of the flood, before getting on the ark, once you're on the ark, after the storm, and use that to help the children with their resiliency. So it's really that connection of all these great partners and being active in those organizations that then give us that hub and spoke to reach out. And like I said, American Red Cross, hey, we think Camp NOAA would be great down on Pine Island. And we're like, absolutely. So it's fully, they funded it. We did some fundraising for food, for breakfast and lunch for the kids, but all the materials, classroom supplies, crafts was funded through that. But it's organizations like that and just coming together. And that's why when I started it and talked about a long-term recovery, it's getting recognized across that. And so in a couple months, we'll attend National VOED conference. So just, it helps keep the spotlight on Pine Island. Mm-hmm. And that's part of it. Going to these things, I've been to Destin, I've been to Orlando a few times, but it keeps the spotlight back on the island.
Yeah.
And because the national partners want to help, but you just have to have a voice to tell them we still need it.
So is there things that you want to get out about either the Legion or GPIA that we've not asked you about?
No, I think the American Legion, I think the biggest thing that surprises people about the American Legion, my biggest pitch for the Legion, is that it's not just the veteran. It's if your dad served, your mom served, either your grandparents served. So it goes 2 generations. So there's a lot of ways to join the Legion. And a lot of us find that, well, I didn't realize because my grandfather or grandmother served, I can join. Yes, you can. And so I think that's the biggest thing I want to tell people. It's a great post. It's very lively, music multiple nights a week, games, a lot of fun, and a lot of activities done to generate money to be able to donate to others. American Legion, very proud of them, donated over $10,000 to the Miami VFW because there was not a Legion out there near the fires, but we found a VFW that we could support that was doing relief efforts. So kind of people helped us, and we saw that as our chance. We needed to do something in kind to somebody else as devastated because we received the same type of blessings here. So I would just encourage people, if you had any, family member, come on down, check it out. You might just find a new group of great friends and people to hang out with. Because I think that's what surprises people. It can be your grandparents, not just your parents. And then with the Greater Pine Island Alliance, like I said, we are here. We're going to be here. Our goal is to get every survivor home. We do understand this is going to be a minimum of probably 5, 6, maybe more years Mexico Beach took over 8 or 9 years. You know, I went and saw a friend of mine up there. They still don't have any restaurants in Mexico Beach.
Wow.
They had 8 before the storm. They have none now. And so they're still working through recovery after that major disaster. So getting into this process, we do know, and the intent is the Greater Pine Island Alliance will be here through that. And then as we go blue skies, we're really focused on that preparedness arm and, you know, working with community partners. And it's, like I said, it's neighbors helping neighbors. We are, you know, unincorporated Lee County, and I think that's what's great about it is the amount of neighbors that just help neighbors.
We hope you enjoyed our Pine Island Experience podcast. If you have any ideas for us, people to interview, or any comments, please feel free to email them to us at pineislandexperience@gmail.com. That's pineislandexperience, all one word, @gmail.com. Don't forget to like us, and you may subscribe to this podcast using all the major catchers like Apple iTunes, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Thanks again for listening, and remember, island life is a constant vacation. We'll see you on the next podcast.